Leafs Talk, JD Bunkis, Justin Bourne, Sam McKee. The Leafs are back.
No way. Is that how we're starting?
Listen, I'm not even going to deny it. I can completely shut myself down emotionally. I was torn about this game going into it. And the second Matthew Knies popped that goal into the net, my allegiances were very clear. And with a massive fist pump celebration in which I blurted out a monster yes. Sammy, how are you feeling right now, bud?
I will say this, that regardless of how you feel about said hockey team, regardless of how you feel, overtime playoff winners are the greatest thing in the world. There is no feeling in sports. Like, there is no singular moment that is just so sharp and so pointed and just like ending the game. And you see Swayman there with his head down. You see Knies bang it in, the big celebration. Regardless of how the rest of the series goes, you get to play another game. You earn another date on the calendar. An overtime winner in the playoffs, baby, hits like nothing else. It absolutely hits like nothing else. And that was an exciting one. Great play by Tavares to take to the net. Knies jams it home. Awesome.
Yeah, I think they got a result they deserve tonight. Still like to see him be able to do this, that, and the other thing more. Ideally, score. But, you know,
that would be great.
I think you score a goal at the end of the game. That's fairly instructive. You know, Tavares tries to get it to the area that it's tough to get to. The puck ends up there with a one-handed play. Knies drives the net. It's like, it ain't going to be pretty, but you're going to need a whack of those. So satisfying to get another couple days and another crack at it when you feel like you're at least as good a team as the team on the other side.
So, you know, just to that point, Bourne, I really think that was one of the themes of the game. There were a couple things for me with Toronto in this one. One is they came out with jump right away, which I think you could actually take one of two ways as a fan, where you can be excited by it, but you can also basically use it to condemn their performances at home. Like, hey, that's actually what it looks like when you have jump. So they clearly had it in this hockey game, but they really were just kept going to the net. And then they were rewarded for it. So I'm glad that they actually did it, because I felt like the Leafs' cycle chances were in this game. There was a real presence from some of their top players. I actually think, like, good for Tavares driving the net there and making an impact, because before that moment, I kind of thought that he was sort of the Leafs' invisible man out of the top six, creating that opportunity for Knies. But yeah, Bourne, I'll stick with you on this one for a second before Sammy, you jump in. What was notably different for you tonight in terms of Toronto's commitment to get to the middle of the ice?
You know, the biggest thing is I thought that their support players were really effective. Like Domi, I know some people give him a hard time, and we probably will too. Bad 2-on-1, and maybe some offensive decision-making wasn't great, but he really skated tonight. And I thought that, you know, that's the impetus to make the defense move and to try to create things. And Bertuzzi was at the blue paint as much as he could. And, you know, Willie, I thought he created a little bit tonight too. So it's just getting moving, and that's a confidence thing too. Move the feet, get skating, make them defend. And by the way, I did notice that Brandon Carlo didn't return for OT, so that can help too, because he's a big factor in keeping players from the inside.
I will say that I thought the Leafs had their best period of the series in the first period of this game, and I was sort of concerned with how it ended, because, you know, they get out of that period, it goes down, they 1-1. They get that fluke bounce that goes off of whoever's skate. There was at Benoit's skate. Oh no, Benoit shoveled it out, and it goes off the guy's skate, lands on his stick in the slot. Not a whole lot of anything anyone can do about that. It's just a bad break. And they go into the first intermission tied, and they come out in the second. They get that early power play, the Bruins. And I'm just thinking to myself, they're going to score here, and this game's going to end 5-1. It's going to break them, and they're not going to like be able to bounce back from not having it go early. And like, how many times have you talked about that, Bourne, on our show, about their lack of ability to stay with it in terms of like them getting a little bit too horned up when it's not going for them and they start to press. And I really felt like, even though they didn't get a lot of offense, clearly tonight they get two, I felt like they didn't overdo it offensively in terms of taking too many chances. They played solid defensively, and for them to bounce back and keep it going after that first period where they weren't rewarded, I was impressed by that, fellas. That impressed me. I didn't know they had that in them.
They had 22 shots after the first two periods. Like, I think a lot of us felt that way of, you get a horrible bounce like that, it goes against you, and man, Boston's going to come out going, you guys screwed up, you left the door open
Exactly.
and come and cave you in. And I thought it was pretty indicative for the Leafs. Like, listen, there is stuff, and we'll get to it because there are some things I think Toronto does need to clean up. I was kind of thinking, Bourne, similar to you about, man, the bar really has changed where it looks like they tried, but they still need an extra frame to score 2 goals. And you're like, yes, that's the best game they've played. Like that's the best game they've had all playoffs. And here we are. But let me ask you this. Did you think the Bruins still looked tight to start the second period?
Yeah.
Because that part was, I thought, a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, I think if you're looking to take positives away from this game, and I think a lot of Leafs fans would be, one of them is it was noticeable. Our panel talked about it at one of the intermissions. You guys were texting about it before the panel ever brought it up, that it just looked like they looked a little tight. This is a big chance to put away the Leafs, and to let the Leafs of all teams kind of hang around and take the play to you at home. Guys, if we were doing the pod on the other side tonight, we'd be killing the Bruins.
Mm-hmm.
That was not much of a showing on that side. So that's a positive. And obviously Joseph Woll is a major story. He's the story of the night. It's, we're not sitting here if they start the other guy.
I do think that, like you could really feel, and for me, I wasn't even really thinking about the 3-1 stuff and like the pressure on them, just because on the other side, it's the Leafs that have more scars even than the Bruins that have been through a lot of this bad stuff. And that wasn't even really something that we kind of made fun of it today on our show. And it's something that I never even really thought about, but seeing the way they played in the first 2 periods, it's like, oh, is this a thing? Like, is this actually like,
we'll make it a thing.
Oh, is this a thing? Like the crowd seemed not as loud as they usually do there. I was just surprised by how it's usually the Leafs that look super tight in these moments. And
we're doing crowd talk, eh? Bruins crowd, all TD Garden crowd talk.
It just felt like a tight butthole night for the TD Garden. They felt nervous the entire time. They're usually rocking and rolling in that game, and they go down early, and the Eights were sitting on their hands for the rest of the night, it felt like. So I don't know, man. Wasn't thinking about the 3-1 thing until I saw them play in the first 2 periods. I was like, oh, maybe they are thinking about this. I don't know.
So I think they kind of had to be. So one, credit to the Leafs for coming out the way that they did.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I agree. The Leafs were brilliant to start, and they put the Bruins on their heels immediately. And I do wonder if Boston psychologically, like, did you see Pasternak before the game on the pregame? He's just having a good time. He seems relaxed. He's feeling cool. The Bruins have embarrassed these guys. They've owned these guys. Maybe they did get a little too overconfident. There was one moment that I saw in the pregame with Brad Marchand where they started asking about 3-1, and he immediately cut off. Did you guys play that on your show today? He cuts off the reporter. And it's like, let me stop you right there. We're a different team than we were last year. There's a bunch of different guys in this room. And I went,
you're worse.
But I also thought, not only are you worse, but I went,
doth protest too much.
Correct. I thought that was oddly uncharacteristic for a guy that has never looked uncomfortable in front of a microphone before, that he sort of got his back up. And so that triggered something with me. I also thought about how funny it was being Tyler Bertuzzi, where you're like, everybody's talking about me as the guy who left, how we're different. And all the Leafs are like, those guys were losers last year. He's like, I was on that team.
So true. Like, that was me. The guy who was a part of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point.
But I really thought that a lot of Boston's offense tonight was just like a couple of plays off the rush and then tons of hope plays where they were just sort of area passes to the middle, kind of praying that someone was going to find a puck, and they never really did.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's, Woll made the saves he had to make, and some of them very good, but you didn't feel like there were a ton of breakdowns. It's tough not to get ahead of yourself. Be like, okay, so now we're going to do 2 more days of Matthews talk. And is it going to be about his ankle, and is Carlo out? And, what do you do? It's, you can kind of twist this around into being a pretty good spot. I know it isn't.
The latest update on Matthews. I don't know.
There's nothing worse than guessing about injuries during the postseason, because it's like, if you question it whatsoever, you'll get a section of the internet that's like, you should be tried in the Hague.
Anderson.
Like, how dare you even
you gave CTE to my father. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, out of everyone here that actually has an ability to reflect on what the consequences of this are, it's you. And yet, should you do it, there will be people in your mentions being like, "You're what's wrong with hockey culture."
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, okay." But if like you don't speculate and you just accept what it is, it's like, oh, that's also boring. You get no information. You get these little crumbs. It's awful. So yeah, I am, out of all the things, I'm looking forward to more, or like I'm least looking forward to Matthews talk than I am a pending Leafs elimination. Like, give me a Leafs elimination over 2 days of guessing what's wrong with Austin Matthews. For the love of God, please.
I honestly would just love tomorrow morning or tomorrow whenever they practice and just be Matthews, lower body, not playing Thursday.
Yeah.
Like, please, like, just give me that. Lower body out, not playing, as opposed to, oh, he was on the ice for 5 minutes. Oh, how's he looking? Was he snapping wristers? What was it like? We had
the coach going, I think I saw a video of him out there. It's like, why don't you know?
Because apparently it's all the doctors' call. It's all the doctors, these powerful doctors
to the doctors.
Yeah, they have stepped in and gone, we will never. They watched them during the second period, and the doctors were just up there sweating, being like, we can't have this go on any longer. And they intervened for the first time in God knows how long. Okay, so Bourne, you mentioned that to you, Joe Woll was the story. So I do want to get to him in a little bit, but I just want to politely disagree. I actually thought Mitch Marner was the story tonight. Did you guys not? So you guys didn't feel, so he only ends up with the one assist, but it's the one in the early, like the first period where he's shoveling it back to McCabe. And it's like the most unlikely of goals for them. But I just thought he looked like Mitch Marner. Like, this was a statement game for him. It was not overly productive. No Maple Leaf in the series has more than one goal, which I think is kind of indicative of how they've done in this series so far. But I loved Mitch Marner's jump, and I thought that this line in general was constantly threatening. And kudos to Domi, who I think ends up being 15-17 in the faceoff circle tonight, which is just like outrageously good, who helped them set up a lot of their cycle chances. But like, this is the Mitch Marner people are looking for, is the guy that creates for others, has defenses on their heel, and is whipping around the offensive zone and feeling truly dangerous, which I thought he was tonight. I thought he was the best player for both teams.
I thought, I agree that he was excellent. And you're right. It's not about the production. It's just about him not looking timid and him not looking afraid of the moment, and him not, like, it's never been about the production. And clearly the production is the top of the mind. You need him to produce, but it's how it's looked for the majority of his playoff career. The eye test has just never worked, and it's never looked good. And you're right. It looked like regular season Marner tonight, where he's dictating the pace of play when he's on the ice, and he has the puck a lot. He was taking contact, still a couple turnovers that I didn't love. The play in the third period where he's in the middle of the ice, he doesn't fire it, he double pumps, try to do a saucer through to nobody there, which I know that's his game, but you'd like to see him shoot it. But yeah, like you can't even measure how much better he was in this game than he has been in the rest of the series. Like, there's no comparison between who he was tonight and who he was in the other 4 games. Like, he was by far the best player between two teams, I think, other than Woll. We can have that combo. But just look decisive, not timid, taking contact, doing all the stuff he usually doesn't do in these playoff games. So you got to give him credit.
I didn't like him as much as you guys.
You didn't like him as much. Okay, explain.
No, I just got a couple of notes in my book where it's the same thing, where I'm just like, I want him to challenge the Bruins defense rather than circle it. And, I have clips going back to the Columbus series where, it's circling and looking for a way in. And I'm sure you can remember one in the first where it kind of breaks down. He gets a chance and he kind of takes it up away from the net and throws it into a screen. Like, he was a pivotal part of a very good line, of their most important line. And I'll even give you guys, he was probably the best offensive player between the two teams, and I guess it's just a high bar for me, for him, like, for expectations. So I thought he had a good night. I thought, if you think Marner is normally an 8 out of 10 over the regular season, I thought he was an 8 out of 10 tonight. And that was nice, because he's typically shown decline in the playoffs.
But I think that's what we're looking for. And Bourne, like, to me, the bar has shifted with him. Like, if you look at his playoff stats, right, it's games 5, 6, 7 where he's really disappeared. Like
I like the point about the timidity too. Like he did seem more energetic. And
yes.
Yeah.
It's like when his feet are moving. I always reference it this way, even though I think it's a really stupid way to do it because I'm not even positive how a water bug moves, but it's the water bug where he's shifty and he feels like he keeps people off balance. And again, this is a very dumb thing to say. This is my second dumb thing of the rant, but there's every once in a while where you get like the little tiny McDavid-y whiff. And that is when he's circling the zone. That is when all of a sudden other guys are able to set up and the Bruins look like they were scrambling a couple times. And yeah, if Yarncroc can settle one down, right? If Bertuzzi can pick a corner in this one, like I just thought, and Marner had one where he put it on net, like a nice wrist shot off a face-off play from Domi.
That was like, really close. 2 minutes left or something.
Yeah, like a really close play. I just really like he felt really threatening. And if you do alternate reality, I think that there is one where Marner has 2 or 3 assists in this game fairly easily, and they're all primary assists. So that's what impressed me. It's like, it is the process. It's also like, sorry, I know I'm going long here, but there's nobody on planet Earth in sports right now with more pressure on their shoulders than Mitch Marner. Like he had every reason to shut it down for this game, and he responded. So I'm giving him the added credit because I don't think there's a reality where he's not painfully aware about every single detail that is being spoken about him right now.
Absolutely. And that to me is exactly the key point, that what you said, Bourne, the 8 out of 10 thing, I think is absolutely perfect. But like,
he had 1 point.
It would have been very easy for him to be his usual 4 out of 10. Right.
Yeah.
And for him to actually do it in a game, it's a huge, and like Matthews goes out, they clearly need him to step up to the occasion here, and he does it. So, I mean, I'm really hard on him at all times, so I got to give him credit where it's due. And I thought he stepped up tonight, so good on him.
Well, it's funny. We went into this game tonight, coming off our show and just talking to other people. We're going to learn a lot about this team tonight, their commitment to it, their seriousness and competitiveness and whatever. And they went into Boston and won a hockey game. So you guys talk about giving them credit. It's certainly worth that. It's a new type of challenge now, as that pressure, we know it affects them worse at home now. It's going to be, that's a storyline for future days, but for tonight, certainly, credit where it's due.
It's funny though, is like when this was happening, when Marner was playing this way, I went, this is everything he's ever wanted, is for him to be away from Matthews and have a chance to be the guy in a game. And I don't think it's 100% unsurprising that Matthews was out and he got to wear the cape, and then you saw him have his best effort. Like,
no question. There is absolutely no question that is accurate.
I bet you there's some people in the chat that are furious with that opinion, who are like the Marner defenders that came here for his flowers and are livid. But like, I have not moved off my opinion whatsoever from this game that the Leafs are in need of a change. And I thought if you were an opposing general manager, or you were the Leafs and you were doing the whole, like, eventually you shop him, tonight is actually a night that you're using in terms of, hey, did you see what he can do to drive a line? Hey, this is what you do when you put him with a couple talented offensive players. Like, he shows up in the playoffs. Here's his playoff numbers as a whole. And this was with Matthews out and blah, blah, blah. He was our MVP. So
hopefully the Utah, hopefully their scouts only watch this one.
I've already compiled
their new hire of scouts are just like, let's just only watch game 5 of that series.
It's Utah.
Okay. Team's incomplete, sir, but all right.
This is a great step forward for them. They still have an opportunity, obviously, I think, to change everybody's mind. But as of right now, like, just quickly, like, you guys, does this change anything for you in terms of, like, does one game change a lick in terms of what your overarching feeling is if they lose the series?
No, maybe a game doesn't. I said to Sammy, we kind of went at it on the show today a little bit, that I thought a couple games would mean something to me. Like, if this does get pushed deeper, it doesn't mean nothing to me necessarily. But if you ask people what I'm saying, what I'd been saying about the Boston Bruins, not on the air so much, the word frauds probably came up a couple times. Like, I don't think that team's very good. And so, I picked the Leafs before the series for a reason. And to see them kind of pull it together and get good efforts from good players and all that, there's some validation in that. They should feel that. I wonder if the confidence changes a little bit. I don't know. It ain't over.
No, it's not over. But Sammy, you feel that way? This is just about this one game. This one game, seeing them show guts.
I loved that moment. I love them winning. I still think they're an extremely flawed group, and if they lose in 7, nothing changes. But we're not talking about that tonight. We got lots of time to talk about that on
it's not about 7. It's not about 7. No. I'm just saying that this singular moment, I thought there were some people that viewed tonight as like a sliding doors moment where if the Leafs got caved in, it was. That's what I'm saying. If the Leafs got caved in and they were dreadful, then it was like a conclusive sign that they gave up, they quit, and it was over. And yes, the series is still going on. All I'm saying is from this one game, my opinion has not changed from the stuff that I've talked about on my show and your guys' show, in this show, which is that ultimately, I'm not going to ignore the reasons that they got here.
Yeah.
If they fail moving forward.
Bunk, I'll look at tonight like a spare in bowling. Like it was good, but it depends what they knew would do with their next game. You know, if they go out and throw a bowl of strike next game, you look back at this one and go, God, they were pretty good there too. If you go out and throw it in the gutter next game, all right. It was, I think the context of what comes next, like how committed are they to seeing this thing through?
I truly believe that some of this too is that some people are like ready for something else.
Oh, God, yeah.
And it's some like, people. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, including
this overtime was the small domino meme about to push over the ever increasing big ones of what could happen to this organization.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Absolutely could. Okay. So let's dive right back into the game though, because I agree with, I disagree slightly with Woll being the story of the game, just because I didn't think he had to do too much through the first 2 periods. But what I will agree with you completely on is that they don't win this game with the other guy in net. So I guess what impressed you guys most about Woll tonight?
I'll just go with the big moments, like as the game goes on, who is it that takes the puck across the net and he makes a big save, gets a piece. I actually thought the save he made in overtime maybe is going to get lost in the shuffle, but he makes a grade A save in OT. He's a very calm, composed guy. He doesn't seem nervous. Like his interviews, he's very comfortable being in the league and his worth and all that. And that level of self-belief, I think, goes a long way in these moments.
To me, is I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like he's just so much more aesthetically pleasing to watch as a goalie. Like he's so much quieter. There's so much less movement. I think he gets, beat upstairs. You go, like, this is a great save. I think he's better. And I think they made the right move going with Samsonov to start. I get why they did it. If you listen to Real Kipper and Bourne today, you listen to what Steve Valiquette told us about Samsonov. Maybe they didn't make the right move going to him off the stop, but I thought he was really quiet and just solid and looked really good to me. You mentioned that save he makes in overtime. How many times do you see that in playoff hockey where your goalie gives you a huge stop and you go down the other way, you score the winner? It happens all the time. Thought he was great. And it's, you can dream on the story here, right?
Yeah.
Like you can dream on the story where you put in the young guy that's your future guy after starting your quote unquote starting goalie. The guy goes in there, they rally around him. He plays great. They come back in the series. Like you can see the story here. And I thought he was awesome awesome tonight. And that's a great save. So
that's the one on Frederick. So I think he had 2 10-bell saves tonight. The one that was there on Frederick, and then the one that you referenced in overtime, Bourne. Like the kick save that happens, which is just a beautiful reaction save. I think the Leafs deserve a ton of credit for this because, like, as a team, because what do you say when and he's technically still a rookie. I don't know, it's the second playoffs. It's one of those weird things. He's an inexperienced goaltender. But what has been one of the big critiques of Joe Woll? He lets in goals early in hockey games. And the Leafs limited the Bruins to 2 shots in the first period. They just never even let him get a crack at it. And so I think by them scoring first, even as that goal was bad, the one that goes in on him, because he's sitting there with the 50% save percentage at the end of the period, and you're like, woof, like I could do that. I could have gotten one of the 2. like got to ease into the hockey game. Sometimes some people think that can be worse, like you're not feeling the puck. But I just think that the idea that he didn't have to come in right away and be like, holy crap, I got to save this game, that it was able to just sort of set into the mindset of like, don't blow it, like don't break this team's back, just make the saves. That was good. I actually think it's funny because, Sammy, you guys talk about him being aesthetically pleasing. He actually reminded me a lot of Samsonov tonight. Like I actually thought he was out of his crease a little bit. He was playing pretty aggressive. There were some times where it felt like he was in scramble mode and he couldn't track a puck. And the Leafs kind of got fortunate that Boston couldn't kind of get a stick on one when they would have some open nets or he missed some rebounds I don't think his puck tracking was perfect through 2 periods, but where he showed up to me was clutch. He was clutch in the 3rd period when Toronto needed him, when the game started to shift and sort of even out. And then the same thing in overtime where he like made massive monumental saves. And that to me is where I'm like getting the most confidence from Woll, is that it's like he stepped up when they needed him most in this hockey game. They didn't call on him early, but they called on him late and he made big stops.
I thought they had been waiting for a performance from someone surprising to help them through. Like if their stars aren't going to drag them through, who's it going to be? Jake McCabe was awesome tonight. Yeah, like I liked Edmondson too. Like I liked a couple of their D, but McCabe really helped them not play in their end as much, which, obviously shoots the one in the net. That helps you out a little bit too, but Morgan Rielly has not been as good as last year in the playoffs. So to see McCabe play a, number 1 D type of game, that made a big difference.
Can I just go back to something with Woll? And it's something that terrifies me and something that I don't like it in the playoffs.
His ankles.
Way too horny to play it. All he wants to do is play it. Yeah. Like there's nothing he wants to do more than play the puck. Like I think he like in his other lives, like I could be a forward.
He's Marty
like,
Turco.
I don't know. There's just something to him where it's just every time the puck gets out and he's got a chance to get out there, he does. And I don't know, was it this year late at some point with the puck? I think maybe it was against the Devils where they just like picked his pocket when he was asleep. In a playoff game, like I look at this.
That's just a horrible bounce though.
I know, but like he goes out of the net all the time, all the time. Every chance he gets to go out of the net. Like I loved his game tonight, but I hate how much he wants to play it. And it terrifies me.
What though, if I had this blue line, if I had these guys who can't like handle the puck very well, I'd be gunning out of my net to try to settle it down for them a lot too. Like I'd be thinking the same thing of
here comes Labushkin and Edmondson. You're like, I got it.
Like how about I just put it on a tee for you so that you can come collect this puck rather than you go and get a bouncer, By the way, though,
it's not my notice about him. I don't want that to rear its ugly head in the wrong time. Is all I'll say.
So yeah, I think Bourne, that's a great point about McCabe. If you guys are all right, I really thought that the swing moment in this game was going to end up being the 2nd period. The Leafs have 2 golden grade A chances. And the pivot here is shout out to Edmondson, who makes a great breakout pass to William Nylander, who comes out of the box after just a like stupid penalty, kind of a careless, reckless penalty by Nylander, like an interference call where he just drives into, I think it was McAvoy. And then,
2 dumb ones in 2 games for Willie coming back. Dumb one in the 3rd period against Boston on game 4, and the dumb one again tonight in the 3rd period. Don't want to continue that trend.
Well, Bourne, with him, like, you said you kind of like Nylander's game tonight. He ended up with more shots than, to me, it's like, this is the anti-Kawhi Leonard effect, I always call it, is the Kawhi Leonard effect is when you go, wait, he had that many points? I felt like he took 8 shots all game and he has 34 points. It's just efficient and quiet. And with Nylander tonight, I will say that I didn't feel like I looked at the shot counter and had the opposite effect where I went, he had that many shots? Like you seem to like Willie more than we did.
Yeah, I think there's a couple plays in the offensive zone that I watched and went, nobody else does that. He shook, is it Marchand, I think, in the O zone and set up Edmondson, who dumped a roller into the corner off of it. And then he made a play where he shook a guy and he passed it down low to Tavares, who was using a Nerf stick, and it went through the blade somehow.
Yeah, that was bad.
I just thought there's a couple opportunities where Willie made good passes to guys who didn't do much with him. So not as much of the Willie slicing, dicing, creating his own look, but I thought he was still someone who created some things out there, which God, they're just dying for at this point.
That's exactly what I was going to say about him. I didn't love him, but he just makes a couple plays and you're just hoping that one of these is going to find the way to the back of the net. They need it so bad. These games are so tight. Like I'm watching Carolina. They just score 7 every 6. Like there's pucks are flying in the net. I'm like, oh, but that's a different sport than I'm watching for these last 5 games.
Colorado.
It's crazy.
That ain't
I know.
I was watching the Edmonton Kings game the other night, and I was like, did I have this on fast forward speed? Like, is this hockey? Like, did I press like Netflix has those buttons now, or you can make the show run faster?
Yeah.
And I went, am I watching this like both teams just up and down? And it is not that way. I will say that, yeah, I thought that the Leafs created a lot better off the cycle tonight, that they were a little bit more dangerous, but it is, I don't really want to, like, again, I didn't hate William Nylander's game tonight. I didn't like that penalty that he took. I mean, he kisses it off the crossbar. It's close on that one play that I was referencing. But God, you really want that one to go in when you're William Nylander.
I want him to take it across the net. He takes that across the net all year. Like he didn't look as dangerous there.
Never even considered taking it across the net. It was a really nasty shot.
It was like Domi, by the way. We talk about the Domi 2-on-1 where he never looks at the net.
This is where I was going, is I did feel like tonight, if I'm the Leafs, like I wanted to get to the 2 things that I think really need to change. And one is just you had opportunities in this game and you didn't take advantage of them. You had the Domi 2-on-1s, which, one of this is hilarious because it's like Domi and Marner, and you're like, neither of these guys wants to shoot.
You take it. Yeah.
He would have passed it immediately back to him. That would have been an ultimate hot potato. Then he's got the one where he doesn't even look at the net. But like William Nylander kisses one off the crossbar. They blow 3 power plays in this game. And then there's a crazy end of the period, second period, Matthew Nyes jamming a puck into Swayman, and somehow it doesn't find the back of the net. And that's actually where I felt like the Leafs were cursed. And that's where I go, you got to make your own luck. Like you have multiple opportunities to score in a hockey game. And not all of this was goalieing, some of this is shooting yourself in the foot. And that's the way that I felt about the second period, and especially when Toronto had the vast majority of these chances.
It's nice to see Matthew Nyes, like not just the goal, but I thought he stands up for Morgan Riley at the end of the period and says, you want to fight someone? I'm right here. I thought he had made some good offensive plays in the first. Like that's a little bright spot where you have a guy where you're not counting on him to produce, but he's there as a guy who can.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Domi's crippling addiction to firing flying saucers showed up in the worst place. There's just nothing he wants to do more. And that, like, if you're going back to showing those highlights, if you're watching on Sportsnet Plus or whatever, the pass, first one to Marner, is egregious. You have a wide open shooting lane.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even look. I know the second one's bad, but at least you get a shot off. He just pumps it into the skates. You have a wide open shot, blocker side, let it rip.
He can shoot too.
Every time you see him shoot in a shootout he just rings it bar down. It's like, how about you just shoot it, man? Let it fly.
What a concept. 1 goal game, shoot it.
I actually have thought, hey, if you had a shooting competition with the Leafs players, like where would Domi stack up on the team from ability? Like top 5.
Higher than he thinks, apparently.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like if your life was on the line and you could pick 5 Leafs to just shoot it in the net on a rush chance, like he is got to be in the top 5. And yet here he is with 2 brilliant opportunities to just rip it at the net, and he doesn't do it. And it's like, if you were doing, I think, a poll amongst Leaf fans of who the most like popular Leafs are, who would people most like to see return next year? I think Max Domi's name would genuinely be like in the top 5 as well, right? It'd be like Matthews and Nylander and Woll.
He's taking huge strides this year for me.
Oh
yeah. He's been awesome. He was 12 of 14 in the dot in this game. His line was buzzing. He has the right attitude for these games. And yet when he passed those pucks both times, I was like, kick him off the tour. I was livid. Like
suspended.
For a guy that has such a good read of the play and the market, it's like just sometimes the Dumbo in the seats yelling "shoot" is right, and they're right with Max Domi.
Yeah.
Before we go, I don't have a whole lot left for you guys, but we got to bring up the Marchand dive when the ref grabbed him. Like that,
he thought someone else touched him and went down, and then he was like, "Oh!"
I thought Pontus Holmberg. This is his. I mean, maybe his only contribution to the series, but by far his best contribution to the series, where he manages to out Marchand, gets in his grill, gets him off his game. Like, I mean, they're like, look at it. This is great battle.
Yeah.
Love it. They're going at it, and they're, they call. Oh, look at this guy!
And Holmberg even goes back at him, which I like.
love it. And like, it's so funny to me because he looks up at the ref and he's like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. That was a ref, not a player. He thought it was a player 100%. And he goes down like he got sniped from the crowd. Like, it's just so funny to me.
He's sassing the liney like he's mad at the liney when you went down easy on purpose.
This guy is all guts, pure guts. Like, there's just, you love his heart and soul, but God, he's addicted to diving. He just spends more time on the ice than he does upright. All he does is flop around, and he did it again when the ref grabbed him.
I thought he got called. Well, like originally the Sportsnet truck put up that the Leafs were getting a power play. Yeah. And I thought it was because they were just calling Marchand on the dive.
Yeah, you do. Diving for the ref.
Yeah. No. I thought it was the one before that. I will say that if you watch Holmberg on that play, like he tracks him, he just traces him the entire time in the D zone. And you always hear stories of NHL players or any professional athlete when they know like the career was coming close to an end. And I felt like that was one of his.
He's like, I couldn't shake Holmberg. I knew it was over.
Yeah, bingo. Like, hey, Brad, when did you know that your career was changed? He's like, when Pontus Holmberg was on me like white on rice. And I
turned Holmberg into Esa Tikkanen and I knew it was over.
That's in his 30 for 30. It was that last shift where I got dogged by him and then the ref took me down and I knew that was it.
That was it. Okay. Two more topics for me in this game. Is there, because I've got some questions about the series. The only other thing is like, I was going to say that's on this game is Bourne, Sam. Did you guys see anything that gives you any encouragement about the power play? Like I'm genuinely at the point now where they get them and I'm like, don't decline. You know, it's like a penalty in football.
They had a really good one. They had a really good one. Of 3.
So what'd you see? Because I don't feel they had a really good one. I felt like they had 2 absolute back-breaking momentum killers.
Well, they had the one where was it Riley took the heater that got deflected into Swayman, where they had taken enough shots that the Bruins collapsed and got out of structure for a hot second, and you felt like there was going to be a lane for someone. Again, it's like the bar has gotten so low that I was like, ooh, we're on to something.
Can I just
the bar is so low that now we're like, we saw a point shot, you guys.
A slapper right onto the net.
Can I say that I have a couple thoughts of the power play?
Yeah.
First one is I sit there like a big dumb idiot every time. I'm like, boys,
nice.
This is the one that's gonna flip.
I know,
it.
same.
This is the one that's gonna flip it. And then I sit there at the 45-second mark when they haven't gained the zone and made a pass yet. I'm like, how did I ever believe that this is gonna be the one? But I will say, they 1 for 17.
Yeah,
they're going into game 6. I mean, maybe it'll flip here, right? Like I'm doing the thing, but
oh my God, that's
maybe one goes
due.
Maybe one goes in. Who
knows?
knows?
The Leafs power play, yeah.
Like they have so many good players on the ice. It can't keep being this bad. And maybe game 6 they get 1 or 2 and it changes the series. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws, boys.
Yeah, except for on my podcast, which again, subscribe to our other shows. Subscribe to the JD Bunkis podcast on Apple and on Spotify. Subscribe to Real Kipper and Bourne, do the exact same thing. So I did the breakdown of the last 5 postseasons, and it's like they've had one series, and it was the Tampa one where they won, where the power play has been 25%. The rest of them, it's littered with like 14, 11. It's not good. It's never been this bad. So I guess you could say it's only going to go up from 1 of 17.
We're in Blue Jays territory here, looking for positive regression to 12%. That's what we're looking for. I mean,
I would have a lot more confidence if this wasn't like a yearly occurrence. Like even when they faced Florida last year, when they got ousted, they were dreadful. I didn't even count the Columbus series because I didn't even count it as playoffs, and they were dreadful in that one too. Like I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but each and every single time these guys have been eliminated, the power play has gone into the crapper and they have not been able to do anything to change it. So no, like I didn't see much that encouraged me. I did have one thought though on the Riley thing, which is when he shot it, I went, if I'm the Leafs next year, the one thing that I'm like absolutely prioritizing is getting Morgan Riley off the power play and finding someone who could shoot it. Like again, try to compare anybody to the Oilers power play is stupid. They're so loaded and so good, but having Bouchard there who can just pump one towards the net every once in a while that actually scares you is valuable. I like seeing guys.
That's why they signed Klingberg.
That's why they signed Tyson Barrie.
Yeah,
They
but Tyson
literally
Barrie-
tried to do it.
Not signed.
But Tyson Barrie was
Yeah.
like, oh, he's got a point shot that was better than Riley, but then it turned out to be like not so great. Anyway, so the Bruins would be the first team in sports history that would, like in North American sports history, that has blown a 3-1 lead in consecutive seasons. We fact checked that with our boy Jobo. So it's been no one in the NBA, no one in Major League Baseball, no one in the NHL. So that's just something. Do you guys, like, right now, what is your belief-o-meter in terms of like the pressure Boston is feeling in this series moving forward? And like, do you think that there is also something removed from the Leafs who have already been written off for dead, who now kind of get to play carefree because they've already seen like the biggest brunt of the critiques?
Sam?
My belief-o-meter going into tonight was at 0%.
Okay.
And I would like to ratchet that up to a solid 16% for Mitch Marner's number because he was good tonight. How do you like that?
Okay,
that's 16%.
I'll give him a 34% chance.
Whoa!
I meant it more in terms of like, do you like believe in that narrative o-meter that like,
of course,
yeah,
that's all I got, baby. That's it. Like that. Now that the narrative has flipped, where like you said, they saw the worst of it. They heard everyone say all the dumb things that if they come back, they can dunk on them. The pressure's off the Leafs here.
That's what I mean.
Now right back on the Bruins.
You got Joseph Woll feeling good about himself. You know, like I hope that the other players said, okay, Matthews wasn't in tonight and we played pretty well and remembered that they're allowed to play too when he's back in the lineup. So there's reasons to believe they're headed in the right direction. Just dying to know if we're talking about a team with Austin Matthews or not.
So I can confirm like the sickness thing is like very real. Like he did get extremely sick, but I'm like with the Elliott and them in terms of like it's clearly more than that now. Like there's just no way I believe that whatever illness he got. I was told that he did get like a very, very, very bad flu. Yeah. And so whatever, that it was like something where he was feeling weak and he couldn't find himself. But I just wonder if he pulled something or did something in these last couple of games that made it worse, because I just don't see a guy who wouldn't have gotten the IV and wouldn't have taken pills and gotten out there with an illness. Like
tore an oblique puking. It does hurt.
That's what I mean is like, it's gotta be sickness that went to something else. That's my guess on this thing at this point, because it's just like when have you guys ever heard of a flu that would prevent you from playing in a Stanley? Like Chris Versteeg told me a story on his pod the other day my pod the other day about how like they had a playoff game against Vancouver where they literally had to wheel Duncan Keith up to the game, like help him put his gear on and basically threw his corpse out onto the ice. He was so sick, couldn't walk up in the arena.
That's why I have been so adamant on our show that there's no chance after the series we're like that they're just like, yeah, he had the flu. Like, no, we're going to hear something that makes us go, okay.
Yeah. That's the one for me. I think that's it. Let me scooch through the notes. I think so. Please leave a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube. It really helps people. And a comment, like if you like the show, if you enjoy the show, those two things help people find it. They help the show grow. It's the same thing with leaving 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Hitting the follow button obviously helps more than anything. If you're new to the show, we do it after every single game. Thank you for watching. Obviously, we bring in a lot of new viewers during playoff time. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis, at JT Bourne, at Sammy McKee. We love it when you reach out. Bourne, not so much, but Sam and I do.
Reach out.
Bourne's like, right.
If you reach out, if one more person reaches out to tell me they've had migraines once in their life, like holy crap,
oh my god,
Jesus Christ. We get it. Like you had a headache once. My God. I had a migraine once in high school. And
wow.
Oh my God.
Down.
My actual even worse version of that is the guys who are like, my wife gets migraines and she's in hell and I have to take care of her. And you're like, okay, it's like the ultra hero thing where you're like the most sensitive, but also the caretaker. It's like, anyway. Don't be one of those. If you're going to tweet at us and DM us, we prefer nice stuff.
Whatever you want.
Compliments. We'll take those. Gentlemen, anything else?
All good, boys. See you Thursday night.
Thursday, one way or to other. Unless I have a flu, in which case I might not be here.
The only downside of this is that I had a tape if they lost with Teemu Selanne that I don't get to do now. He's one of my favorite players, and now I don't know if that interview is happening. So that's like the only downside. I don't know what's on my show, so I got to figure that out. Anyways, for JD Bunkis, for Sam McKee, for Justin Bourne, we will see you Thursday night.